Usually, if you have a problem remembering something, you try to memorize it, right? It makes sense. But just because you need to memorize it doesn't mean that you have to memorize everything. There is such a thing as useless memorization. So let's say you're having problems with this equation. It's called the quadratic formula. It's used to find the x-intercepts. So let's say you're doing some problems and you always forget this part. Well, you think, hey, I'm having problems with this quadratic formula. Let me memorize it. And so you memorize the whole thing. Now, that is useless because you're only having problems with this part under the square root. That's it. So why are you going to waste time and effort memorizing all this other stuff you already know? It doesn't make any sense. And so just because you have this whole thing, that doesn't mean that you have to memorize the whole thing as one piece. You can take parts of it and just memorize those specific parts if you're having trouble with it. And so if I was having trouble with this equation, I would create images for this part that's highlighted, place it to a memory palace, connect the quadratic formula to it, boom, I'm good. And so when I try to recall the equation, I'm like, okay, what was that thing again? Oh yeah, that was at the bathroom. Oh yeah, I saw two b's, b squared, and x, y, and z, whatever happens in the story. Boom. And so I have this whole part already written out. All I'm doing is just recalling this part. And that's it. Why make more work for yourself when you don't need to? Let's say you want to memorize the vice president of the USA. Now you already know the presidents, so why would you want to re-memorize them, right? It doesn't make any sense. And so you might create a memory palace, first location is going to have the first vice president, and so on. But here's the thing, since you don't know which vice president goes to which president, you have to have an image that represents the president, because how else are you going to know that, George Clinton belongs to James Madison? You just don't know that, right? You know the presidents. And so what you have to do is you have to make an image of some sort that reminds you, that this is George Washington's president. So in the same location, you might make an image for the president just to let you know, hey, it belongs to this vice president, and that's it. So you don't necessarily have to go through and make images for every single thing, for all the different parts of the name. No, you just have to have an image there that reminds you of the specific president. So yes, this is a case where you can't really skip out on rememorizing the presidents, because that's what you need in order for you to know who the vice presidents belong to. So it really depends on the information, on how much information that you do have to memorize. Like with this equation, you can forget everything else and just memorize this part, the specific, or the part that you're having problems with, right? You could do that. For this, the U.S. president, or I guess the U.S. vice president, you kind of have to memorize the presidents over again just because you need to make that association between the president and vice president. And so you always want to look for ways to make the work easier, right? Never memorize more, never put more work in front of you than you need to. And so you have to be vigilant because you don't want to be wasting all this extra time when you could be reviewing it or studying it or whatever it may be. So just keep an eye out and do realize that there is useless memorization out there and don't fall victim for it. So hopefully you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time.